Hello, brothers and sisters. The title of the message today is Sufficiency under God's Grace. Number 7, God gave us the Son. Number 2, Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. Jesus gradually began to change his behavior. Jesus became so much embarrassed because he wanted to give himself to us. He wanted to enter into the life of people, but people did not open up the door of their hearts. Their hearts became farther and farther. They just tried to worship him. Bridegroom came to visit his bride, but if she does just bow down and worship every day, what could he do? If the bride offered food, lit the candlelight, and bow down to the bridegroom every day, bridegroom will become just like a ghost. If people lift him up to heaven, just bow down, Jesus became our ghost, Jesus' ghost. People made him a ghost. That's why fortune tellers call him Jesus' ghost. Jesus did not come to the earth in order to become a ghost. No, he wanted to dwell together with us. He came to us to become Emmanuel. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. It doesn't mean just staying together side by side. How can God and people stay together side by side? How can invisible God and man can stay together? It is just people's imagination. How can people sense that God is staying together with them? He is staying with us means that God and man became one flesh. Therefore, we must learn the fact that our God is the one who keeps coming into us. I used to try to invite him into myself in the past. I used to pray, Jesus, come deep into myself. Don't go out. I feel restless. Please don't go out. Please settle down in me. But it was an impossible prayer. Those kind of prayers cannot be answered. I thought I was abnormal. Maybe I'm lacking prayer. Maybe my enthusiasm is lacking. But later I found that I was a normal person. Jesus doesn't come in even though I may pray. Jesus doesn't go out even though I may pray. Becoming one body. That's God's purpose. And becoming one body is inseparable. I used to understand Jesus as the one who calmed the sea and the wind in the Sea of Galilee, saved the life of Lazarus. That's all. Supernatural Jesus. But later I got the enlightenment. He comes into my destiny. How can I understand such an amazing Jesus as my own destiny? People easily think he and ourselves are so different. So it is very difficult to think he and ourselves are one. We must learn how to discriminate between the two. The person himself and his work are different. That's why he showed us himself, no matter how hard we may try to explain our mind and heart to other person in front of us. But if the person cannot understand, we would say, I want to take out all my organs inside of myself and want to show you. We'll beat our chests and say, why can't you understand me? I want to open up my chest and take out my heart and show you. The reason Jesus went to the cross is the same situation. Why did Jesus went to the cross? When Jesus walked on the water, suppose everyone accepted him as their own destiny, he didn't need to go to the cross even. But after he walked on the water, the distance between Jesus and his people became so farther and farther. If Jesus expressed this way, they misunderstood that way. If Jesus expressed that way, they misunderstood this way. Eventually, he had no other way. He went to the cross at the end. he had no other way but go to the cross. Disciples thought there could be many other choices, but why did Jesus go that way? Disciples just thought about recovering the kingdom of Israel, but the path of Jesus was not the path of recovering the kingdom of Israel. His path was just the path of his death. Disciples thought about Jesus so pitiful and regretful. From 14th chapter of book of John, everything shows us that clearly. There were so much obstacles in the conversation between Jesus and his disciples. They could not understand Jesus. Two trains were running the railroad which could not meet each other. They were talking about something that were entirely different. Jesus had no other choice but to go to the cross because of his disciples. Jesus wanted to show himself to his people, and that kind of life constantly reached to the Gethsemane. The purpose of Jesus was only to show himself to his people. After understanding this, I discovered an amazing fact. That Jesus who used to believe was not the true Jesus. If we read the Bible in a profound way, we can discover something that is so contradictory. The one who fed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread became so different at the last position, saying, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." At that Mount Gethsemane, we became so confused. He used to feed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. But why did he become such an entirely different person? What made him? At that position, he said, "Father, not according to my will, but let Father's will be fulfilled." He said, "Could you, men, not keep watch me for just 1 hour?" He asked Peter, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Jesus fed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and walked on the water. How could he say, "Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but your will be done"? Disciples were completely disappointed right here. Jesus was an entirely different person. He was not the person who they understood, respected, and expected with their dreams as Jewish people. That's why they were sleeping when Jesus, being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Wow, so serious. But they fell asleep again and again when Jesus prayed, "Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." But disciples were sleeping. People think disciples were very tired. That's why they are sleeping. No matter how much they may be tired, how could they fall asleep in such a critical moment? Nobody was staying awake. Why were they sleeping? In so many Korean churches, they pray so early in the morning, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., as they take part in the early morning prayer meeting at the church every day. They have so many things to pray. The disciples have less enthusiasm than these people. Disciples were exhausted in their mind and heart as they followed Jesus. Nothing that they dreamed of were fulfilled, but those unexpected things were happening continually. Jesus was going through the path which was entirely different from their expectation of his disciples. He could not understand Jesus at all when he said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." Why did he say, "Let us pray together"? "Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me"? They really couldn't understand why. As they really couldn't understand what Jesus said, there was no other way but to fall asleep. Even though Jesus tried to wake them up, but they had to sleep. Finally, at the court of Caiaphas, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. I really don't know about him. Eventually, as they really didn't know and understand Jesus, they denied him and left him. I myself finally met the same kind of man right there. I am the same kind of man who will say, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me. If I face the same environment, but ultimately I have no other way but to say, yet not my will, but yours be done. I thought it was just the decision of Jesus. But later I found out that anyone cannot say, I want it according to my own will at that situation. At first, we may say that, but as time goes by, life cannot become according to my own will. As time goes by, we learn about the principle of life. These days, there is the tendency that so many people just have one child. If people are at the same position, they say the same thing. Why do people say that the words of Jesus as God's words? How can the word of people become God's words? It is because we are at the same position. We say the same thing. Moses said the words of Jehovah God. How could people say the words of Jehovah God? It is because if you are at the same position, we say the same thing, naturally, spontaneously. If a woman becomes mother, she will say the words of mother spontaneously. If a man becomes a father, he says the words of father naturally. Words of woman and words of mother are entirely different. If a woman becomes mother, she can say the words of mother unconsciously. But if a woman wants to speak mother's word, she has to mimic. A woman cannot say the truthful words of mother. Only the one who became mother can say the words of mother. Therefore, mother's words cannot be defined. We cannot define mother's words are lovely or mothers are merciful. Mother's word may not be merciful sometimes, but they are still mother's words. Mother's words cannot be merciful, can be merciful, of course, generally speaking. Mother can call her child as, you jerk, you puppy. Whatever the words may be used, they are still mother's words. In Chola province in Korea, they call little children as, you cute puppy. But through common sense, how can we call human being as puppy? It is an insult, but actually they are just using it to express their love. If the position of man is the same, they use the same expression. Meeting Jesus at that position is the meeting Jesus at an ultimate position. At that position, we finish up everything. We die at the same position. We try to die, but we cannot die. Discovering the position of Jesus, confessing, not my will, but yours will be done. This is the true position of dying in front of God. If we discover our true being, we are dead people toward the old man. The man who gave an oath, I'll never deny you, even in the place of my death, will die toward that man. Everyone may be falter, but I'll never falter. Toward the one who used it to confess, I'm dead toward that person. I can do something, that man is dead, and I can not do anything, that man is living. That's why we confess, when Jesus died, I died too. When he was crucified, I was crucified too. St. Paul said, I was crucified when Christ was crucified. When was Paul crucified? Did Paul really meet Jesus? No. But Paul met Jesus at that very position. When Jesus died, he two died together. He himself was revealed as a dead man before Jesus. When Peter gave an oath, we also gave an oath. We agreed Peter as one of the disciples of Jesus. That's quite natural for you. We were living together with Peter. When Peter denied Jesus, we also denied Jesus. When Peter went back to the Sea of Galilee, we went to the Sea of Galilee to catch fish. Those people who came out in the Bible are representing ourselves. Disciples were just country boys who were living near the Sea of Galilee, but they are all representatives of all mankind. Disciples, those truthful people who could not tell a lie, were chosen by Jesus as his disciples. Peter did not tell a lie. His words were truthful words for himself, but he did not know his true being. I'll never deny you, even I may die. But he said, I really don't know him. Both words were quite the opposite, but they were truthful words. He said, let's go to Galilee to catch fish. It was the truthful words also for him. He was a truthful man, but he did not know himself. We followed Jesus along with Peter. We gave an oath just like Peter. We denied Jesus just like Peter. And just like Peter, we met resurrected Jesus again in the Sea of Galilee. Jesus died in the place of ourselves. How could he die in place of ourselves? Jesus died in the place of ourselves. It doesn't mean that he worked out something for us. With his destiny, he replaced our destiny. He replaced our truthfulness with his truthfulness. And he replaced our death with his own death. Peter denied Jesus, but he replaced my truthfulness with his truthfulness. What's the relationship between Peter and ourselves? But that Peter was myself. But that man was me before he came to Gethsemane. Before I was discovered on the cross, I was that Peter. I was led my life Peter was living. He was living that type of life in place of me. Therefore, Peter was living at that time, but he's living even now, today. Jesus was living at that time, but he's living even now, today. In book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 8, it said, Jesus Christ is the same today, yesterday, and same forever. He's living always. As we met him, we found out that he was myself, hidden me, unknown me, lost me. I was deceived by Satan. I was taken by Satan, but we got back the lost me in Jesus Christ. Thank you. Hallelujah. May God bless every one of you. Thank you. Thank you again.